we had a pretty strong demo. But when I look back on it, I thought that the demo was very hardware focused. I think we did like the link. It was like 246G, maybe, if I remember that correctly, something like that, had like the big LED display. We used to even like put their logo on it on the screen, which was like a nice touch. People liked it. Like actually at first we would put our own logo, and then we did it once where we put their logo on it, and it was like, they went wild. Yeah. So, but I thought it was like, as far as the magic behind, and the features that we were showing, it was very limited. People just wanted to see that it rang, but they were kind of wowed by the device. And so that was our standard device. But like, do you think that MSP should start focusing more on back end too? Or should the demo still be kind of like hardware forward, show you what it does, and then, get that sort of like instant gratification, even though the more important stuff is probably the soft end?
There's two-folded answer here. I'm an outcome-based guy, okay? So what I try and do during the initial conversation with these prospective buyers, existing customers, whatever it is understand what is or isn't working, understand the pieces that they've just never had, and work backwards from that outcome, right? And by doing that, you start talking a lot more about business objectives rather than the phone on the desk that rings. That being said, there's different personalities in every organization. We all know this. The office general, I call it, is completely different than the business owner a lot of the times. Or the person that's managing sales, who may be somebody who's more mobile, is completely different than the person taking orders on the phone. So there are different objectives that need to be checked off in most organizations. So it's important to work backwards from business objectives, but then also check boxes along the way so that the people downstream to the organization don't get flustered. For example, and this may have happened to you. I've seen it happen way too many times, and I'm going to tell it for the 1057th time. If like back, and this is still the case today, but back in the day, or even today, if you walk into an office, safely of course, and you look down on the desk, and the phone has 10 buttons, and if you give them a phone with less than 10 buttons, you're going to have a mental breakdown. Don't do it. But the same thing occurs for, like you need to check those boxes, right? Like, and again, back to headsets, right? Some people are like, nope, I got to have this particular headset. Hey, those are all preference things. And we can check those boxes along the way to keep everyone happy in their lane. But the business owner, right? The check signer, the guy who's ultimately making the decision with his, lead business leaders in their departments or whatever, are after a couple of things. One, it's not always about price. Price is part of it. Don't get me wrong. You can't hide from it. It's not always about price. Two, it's about, does this make their people more flexible? Can they get more done in less period of time? And even now, I would say one of the super important topics is reportability and accountability, right? Like, how do I know my people working from home are getting their job done, other than I look at the books, or I look at the system and find out, if or not they clicked all the buttons they were supposed to. Like, phones is still a very important part of communicating with customers. And as a result, it's another thing that should be reported on. So when they're in this buying process, especially now, it's, hey, is this tied into my tools? How do I know people are doing their job? Can I review what an individual is doing? Like, customer service in any industry, right? They say if you really concentrate hard on customer service, even if your product is just okay, you'll probably do well. But it's even more important now to make sure that customer service experience is good. Nobody wants the person at home who, is struggling, right, to do their job, and they find out their customers like, forget this, I'm going somewhere else because I just can't get somebody on the line to answer my questions. Like, that's the type of thing that business owners are now really keen on making sure that the job's getting done, the experience is good, the system can help them get them there. Nobody wants to spend hours on end creating Excel documents. And so, like I said, you got to work backwards from the business objectives. I really feel strongly about that. And yes, do they want to make sure the phone rings? Sure. Yes. Do they like a certain headset? Fine. Yes. So there's so many buttons on the phone? Sure. Check boxes. But check boxes got to lead to an ultimate outcome.
When it comes to reporting,
yep.
is that something that you recommend MSPs sort of keep on the back end and then like automate reports? I know and I'll give you an example. It's like we were always hesitant to like hand over access to the dashboard to our end customers. You never knew. Now, most of the time you hand something over like that and they don't do anything with it, right? And they never log in, look at it. But then you'll run into somebody that's like a tinkerer, and then suddenly you're fixing something where they just had too much access. And so how do you see that relationship? And like, what are you seeing that the business owners and the people that actually care about that reporting, and like, how do they limit that? And what's the access like?
Yeah, every system has a different answer to this question. And a lot of them have not really grown recently from probably when you remember it, meaning that it's kind of almost God mode in some degree, right? And you're kind of hesitant to give that access out because if they break it, you got to figure out how to fix it. That's number one. Now, there are systems out there that give you granularity and rights and permissions like you would your Microsoft 365, for example, where some people have only access to certain things and everything's audited. You can go find out who made the change and what. You can maybe revert the change. Like these are the things that are more modern now that have been missing and are still missing for many people, right? Which is why the experience to the end user, like at the end of the day, you need to make the end user experience good. I mean, if you want to make it great, that's fantastic, but it has to be good. If it's not good, if it's less than good, you're going to have a problem at some point. So when it comes to reporting, when it comes to data, when it comes to analytics, when it comes to, and that's in twofold. In real time, what's happening right now? Do I need to make a change? Or am I getting overloaded? Do I got 30 people sitting in the queue waiting to get answered? What's going on? To, at the end of the day, week, quarter, month, whatever it is, hey, am I just missing a lot of calls? Am I understaffed? Is there a specific person on my team that's just not holding their weight? Was there an issue that, somebody raised their hand and got all the way upstairs and now somebody needs to go dig into why there's this, right? He said, she said, what happened on that call? Like these are the types of things that get, cut up in different times in different places for different reasons. But the accessibility is important, right? And if the system isn't capable, then what ends up happening, Kevin, is that they come back to you. Maybe they come back to you and say, hey, I really need this. Is this something the system gets, or should I look for something else? The alternative to that thought is, well, this system just doesn't do what we need. We need to go look for something else. And they don't even tell you about it. So like, this is the challenge, right? You got to make that experience good, which is back to the last thing I said, which is, how do you understand what a good experience is without working backwards from their outcome, right? So there is a fair amount of question digging and answer, listing that need to be, factored into the whole buying process so that they're not getting something that they're never going to use. And subsequently, they're getting something that will actually check their needs off.